You know the story. 2 children lost in the woods, a house made of sweets, a witch who bakes children in an oven, eventually outsmarted. The oven becomes the trap, and the children survive. But the fairy tale everyone reads at night is a sanitized surface. The truth beneath the sugar is a map of hunger, child exposure, witch hunting, and documented atrocity. Do you think Hansel and Gretel is just a cautionary bedtime tale? The origins are far darker, rooted in specific years, courts, and hospitals, where the brutal realities of medieval and early modern Europe are written in ink and smoke. Picture Thuringian woods in 1316. Rain tears through coarse wool, mud clings to boots. Imagine a village where the harvest failed for 2 years, and the grain mill is silent. Chronicler Henry Knighton writes of the Great Famine of 1315-1317. Markets empty, bread baked from bark and roots, parents with no food for infants, children go missing. In that season, abandonment is not myth. The breadcrumb motif, Hansel casting stones, leaving a trail, becomes a coded memory of desperate parents, marking paths and collars to identify exposed infants, a record in the margins of parish registers. Court rolls and parish records across England and the continent show foundling entries skyrocketing after 1315. The Ospedale degli Innocenti in Florence, whose building is completed in 1445, catalogues infants left at its doors, with notes of whether a mother had written a sign or left a token. Children see a trail of pebbles as play. Historians see tags, marks, and the bureaucracy of abandonment. But it gets darker. That gingerbread cottage, the irresistible confection, is not whimsy. Gingerbread and sugar are signifiers of urban bakery wealth that rural peasants rarely taste. In 15th century northern France and the Rhineland, municipal bakers were licensed and their ovens taxed. Sweetmeats were luxury items recorded in household accounts. Imagine a market stall in Cologne, 1450. Smell of caramel and burnt sugar. A coin's worth of bread passed between fingers. The witch's house of sweets is a perversion of hospitality. Temptation that hides predation. Here's what's truly horrifying. Medieval trial pamphlets and parish complaints frequently tie urban food stores to child disappearance. In the trial of Gilles de Rais, tried and executed in 1440 near Nantes, the records preserved in the trial transcript detail how children were lured with coins and promises. There is no gingerbread cottage, but the pattern is the same: sweets, promises, betrayal. The transcripts themselves, now in regional archives, describe how a noble used gifts and food to lure victims. Children perceive a candy house. The historical record shows deliberate enticement. The figure of the witch in the tale, old, female, cannibalistic, maps onto a wave of early modern witch hunts. Picture Bamberg in winter, 1628. Snow presses against stone walls. Torches throw tall shadows on the cobbles. Court records from the Bamberg witch trials, 1626 to 1631. Catalog testimony collected under interrogation. Accusations that neighbors stole infants or offered them to diabolical Sabbaths. Municipal ledgers record payments to informants. Execution lists record dozens of names. The oven, in the story, is literalized in witchcraft pamphlets distributed across Germany that claim witches roasted or devoured children. Court minutes from Würzburg in 1629 accuse alleged witches of killing and cooking infants at secret gatherings. Those minutes, preserved in state archives, are a catalog of horror and accusation. Children regard the witch as a villain to be defeated. Historians read trial transcripts and see moral panic, economic envy, and scapegoating leading to the ritualized destruction of women and the disappearance of children. But the horror does not stop there. The stepmother in Hansel and Gretel, cold, pragmatic, urging abandonment, mirrors demographic realities in post-plague Europe. After the Black Death of 1347 to 1351, family structures are fractured, remarriage common, resources scarce. Look at municipal records in late 14th century Lubeck. Rates for poor relief and directives about parish care of children rise sharply. City council minutes from Lubeck, 1379, record disputes over who must support an illegitimate child when a father remarries. Historical documents from German towns show that stepmothers often bore the blame when a household fell into penury. Children experience rejection as moral failing of a parent. The archives show it as economic calculus and municipal responsibility. There is an even bleaker layer, the oven's transformation into the instrument of the children's escape. The witch shoved into her own fire echoes real killings and reversals recorded in criminal registers. Look to the case files of Brittany in 1440. Gilles de Reyes is executed, but his trial also records ritualistic murders of children, reports of dismemberment, and alleged redistribution of parts. The trial dossiers in the Breton archives contain witness interrogations that are disturbingly specific about the fate of children taken from the roads. Another file in the Parisian criminal records from 1570 recounts a peasant accused of killing a child and cooking it to hide evidence. The confession appears in a criminal register and survives in a printed pamphlet. The fairy tale gives the children agency. The witch is burned for her crimes. The records show how often no such justice occurred. Consider a second reconstructed scene, now in a poor Saxon farmhouse in 1811. Wind rattles shutters, the hearth is low, and a schoolmaster knocks at the door to collect children for the workhouse. This is the world Jacob and Wilhelm Grimm are collecting from oral storytellers. In 1812, the Grimms publish Kinder- und Hausmärchen. The first edition contains darker, rawer versions of tales. The preface in the 1812 edition itself are documents. The brothers note field collections in Hesse and Thuringia, dated to the first decade of the 1800s. By the time of the final 1857 edition, grisly details are softened. The manuscript evidence shows editorial choices, what to keep and what to sew over. Children remember fright. The Grimms and their notebooks record confession and colloquial phrasing. You read a polished page. The Grimms held the raw stories in their folders, stories that bear the fingerprints of famine, courts, foundling doors, and witch trials. Each element of Hansel and Gretel becomes a cipher. Breadcrumbs are tags, and abandonment rituals recorded in the registers of the Ospedale degli Innocenti. Records from the 15th century show tokens left with infants. The sugary house is urban temptation and a cover for predation, echoed in the offers recorded in the Gilles de Reyes trial transcripts, 1440. The witch is the embodiment of witch hunt narratives seen in Bamberg's 1626 to 1631 records and Würzburg 1629 minutes. The stepmother is demographic strain reflected in Lubeck Council, minutes from 1379, and parish poor relief accounts. The oven is not fantasy, but a conflation of criminal cases preserved in Breton and Parisian criminal files from 1440 and 1570. This is not to say every version points to a single crime. These motifs accumulate like sediment. Famine leaves breadcrumbs and foundling hospitals. Urban sweets and lures intersect with criminal predation. Witch hunting transforms social anxiety about women and children into accusations recorded in court. The manuscripts, chronicles, council minutes, and trial transcripts are not allegory, but evidence of systematic horrors, economic policies that left children exposed, legal systems that scapegoated the vulnerable, and popular narratives that preserved memory through metaphor. You can no longer look at the gingerbread cottage and see only a harmless confection. Every peck of sugar in that house is a record of who had access to sweetness and who paid with a child's life. The tale the Grimms wrote down in 1812 tidies centuries of disorder into a simple narrative, but the archival trail refuses erasure. Once you read the court minutes, hospital registers, and trial dossiers, Henry Knighton's famine entries from 1316, the Ospedale degli Innocenti registers from the 15th century, the Gil de Rais transcripts of 1440, the Bamberg witch trial, records from 1626-1631, and the Grimms' 1812 manuscript notes, you will find the story transformed. Hansel and Gretel is not just a ghost story. It is a compressed history of hunger, abandonment, accusation, and violence woven into a child's story to hide what communities could not bear to name. When the next bedtime story opens, remember, you are not simply reading about sweets and sorrow. You are reading history's attempt to disguise its ugliest truths.